I gotta be honest, the visuals are absolutely amazing, and it's got the performance to boot, and it's so unexpected. Well, bottom line, I'm just loving this new VR headset. Hello and welcome to the Sim Hangar. My name's Mark. Thank you very much for watching, and let's get started. If you've followed my channel for any period of time, you'll be well aware that I've been a big advocate for the HP Reverb G2 V2 VR headset as representing the best bang for your buck in terms of price to quality of visuals and features in the marketplace today. Well, all of that has just changed, and it's been changed by a very, very unlikely candidate, and one I didn't expect, and it's the Pico 4. It's the 128GB version. It cost me just over £350 compared to what is today something approaching £700 for the HP Reverb. It's wireless, it has pancake lenses, and to be honest, I didn't have high expectations. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you what my settings are, how I used it, and why the Pico 4 is now my go-to VR headset for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's probably also worth mentioning that this is a review that almost never got made. I originally ordered the Pico 4 just before Christmas. When I received it, I ordered it directly from Amazon UK. And it's worthwhile mentioning that this video is not sponsored in any way. When Amazon delivered it, the box was very slightly damaged, but it was wet, so I rejected it at the doorstep. I got the replacement between Christmas and New Year. Thank you very much for that. But I had a problem. There was a dead pixel right in the center of the right eye, so I sent it back and cancelled my order. Well, I then decided to laugh off the Pico 4. I wouldn't be following up on it. But VR Flight Sim Guy, and if you haven't watched his channel, you should do. I'll leave a link in the notes below, was very, very positive about this headset. So I decided, third time lucky, and I ordered another one. And I'm so glad I did. I didn't have high expectations, and if I have to be honest, I sort of hoped it wouldn't live up to expectations, and it certainly didn't on my first couple of tries, certainly compared to the HP Reverb G2. In this video, I'm going to run through some of my settings and show you how and what I did to achieve what I think for my system is probably optimal performance. And a vote of thanks to Shark or Professor Shark, who helped me with the settings and gave me guidance and steerage along the way. Really appreciated, Shark. Thank you very much indeed. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with it. Whilst I talk about this headset, on screen will be a number of flights that I did with the Pico 4 in VR. It's worth noting that I didn't capture this footage directly from the monitor. The Pico 4 has the ability to record and save directly in the headset, as it is designed primarily as a standalone device. To fly and record simultaneously was a great way to stress the headset and see what it was capable of. And whilst I did experience a number of micro stutters from time to time, the footage may display more than I actually experienced in the headset. It's also worth noting the image you're seeing is probably marginally better than the one I'm seeing in the headset. But after applying the settings, which we will cover later on in this video, when I say the difference is marginal, that's exactly what I mean. When considering whether or not this headset is for you, there are a number of very critical factors that need to be taken into account. And first and foremost, this headset is designed as a standalone headset and a competitor to the Quest 2 with better visuals, and not primarily as a PC VR headset such as the HP Reverb G2. It doesn't have a display port, which means data is compressed before sending it through to the headset and then uncompressed prior to being displayed. This means there's a considerable load on your system, and particularly so for your GPU or graphics card. This means to get the sort of performance levels that you're seeing in this video, you're going to require a top-end GPU with a generous supply of video memory, so it can deal with this extra workload. Bottom line, if you don't have a top-end GPU, And I haven't been able to test with other cards, but I'd say 4090 or 4080 as a minimum, then this headset's probably not for you and is likely to disappoint. I am streaming the data to this headset, no cables connected, so a fairly stable and fast broadband is also necessary, although there is a cable connection option available. But once again, I haven't tried that. These are my system specs. My CPU is at 10900K, so certainly not the fastest available. So my mind boggles at what you could do with the 13th gen Intel CPU and faster RAM. My RTX 4090 from ASUS has two modes, standard and performance, and for these tests I had it in performance mode, which provides it with a small overclock. To put the performance levels into context, let's have a quick look at my VR settings. And again, as a real stress test, I've got my anti-aliasing in TAA mode for all the tests shown here. You could further improve performance by selecting the DLSS and quality options. I personally prefer TAA mode as it allows for clearer gauges, and as in third-party software virtual desktop, which we'll come to under the settings section, I have motion reprojection enabled. Using DLSS, well, performance lifted considerably, but there was more artifacting and ghosting around trees and that sort of thing. And anyway, I really wanted to stress things out, so I thought TAA is worst case scenario. Under the traffic option, I have live traffic enabled, real-time online, and my normal settings. The Pico 4 headset is incredibly light, and although it's using the same resolution as HP Reverb at 2160 by 2160 per eye, which is approximately 21 pixels per degree, it doesn't use Fresnel lenses. The bespoke pancake lenses that it uses offer two big benefits. One, there's a considerably wider FOV, and secondly, and perhaps most importantly, it has a much larger sweet spot. By sweet spot I mean an area in which your eyes are seeing the best resolution. Just plunk on the headset and you're already in the sweet spot. So the area of clarity in the headset is considerably larger than what we've experienced in the Reverb. Yes, the image does degrade at the peripheral of your vision or of your FOV, but it's far less noticeable. The sound provided is through outlets on the head strap, so it's off ear, so inevitably lacks some depth. Not as good as the Reverb, but much better than I expected it to be. As mentioned earlier, there's two versions of the Pico 4 available, a 128 and a 256GB version. Those figures relate to the amount of storage within the headset itself. Both versions have 8GB of RAM. If you wanted to use it for various different types of games and load these directly into the headset, then the more expensive 256GB version may be for you. For Flight Sim, the data will be streamed directly to the headset, so the amount of storage capacity is irrelevant to me. Both have a Qualcomm processor, both feature Wi-Fi 6, dual band at 2.4 and 5 GHz. Overall, I felt the quality of the product was good enough for the price paid. It's relatively sturdy and comes with two controllers, and I was very impressed with the tracking of the controllers themselves. However, I don't normally use controllers for Flight Sim. It's not my thing. Flying with a controller in my hand is like trying to fly holding a torch. One of the questions that's often missed in reviews is, what is it like for those of us that wear glasses? Well, in the case of the Pico 4, well, it has a fairly generous size opening here because of the large pancake lenses. And so fitting standard size glasses, and I guess my glasses are roughly standard size, standard shape, there's absolutely no problem at all. And because it's got a large sweet spot, you don't need to have the headset on very tight. You can keep it quite loose, but still remain within the best visual area within the lenses. A glasses spacer is also provided, but to be honest, I haven't even tried it. I don't need it. There's plenty of room at default. Other than a need for a high-end graphics card, there are a number of other disadvantages though. I personally found the face cover far too hard. Fortunately, you don't need to tighten it down like you do with most other headsets, because of its overall weight and how well balanced it is. so for me it's not a big issue, but I will be looking for a replacement when one's available. It comes with a nose guard which effectively stops light leakage, but because the face covering is fairly rigid, I did get a little bit of light leakage from the back of the face covering, with a small reflection showing on the lenses. And of course this will vary person to person depending on the shape of your face. The amount of leakage was very small, and I was able to eliminate it by simply changing the lights in the room in which I was flying. The Pico 4 also has a built-in battery, and in my tests I'm getting something around 2 hours 20, 2 hours 30 out of a battery. And then you need to charge it with the cable and plug supplied. I quite often have a VR session lasting maybe 3.5 hours, so this is going to be an additional cost, and I'll probably be looking at a third-party product such as Bobo VR, which allows for additional battery and continuous power. So potentially that could be up to another £100 or 99 US. Compared to the Reverb, blacks are better depicted, and in terms of color reproduction, I couldn't really see a difference. Pretty much like for like. But if anything, the Reverb perhaps just has the edge. The Reverb may also have the edge in terms of overall graphics quality, as the image in the Pico 4 is compressed as already mentioned. But once again, the difference is very nominal, and for the wider FOV and bigger sweet spot, it's a trade-off I'm happy to live with. This is my first wireless headset, no cables attached, and I have to say it's quite liberating. No need for weight balancers or anything else of that nature, and for me once again this is a huge positive for the Pico 4. The controllers themselves have vibration feedback, easy in the hands, and if you've ever used the controllers on a Quest 2, well, you'll know exactly what to expect. The headset can operate at both 72 and 90 Hz. For all my tests here today, I was using the 90 Hz mode, and then motion reprojection to lock it at 45 FPS. Okay, so let's now move on to the settings. I'm not saying mine are perfect, I'm sure there's more tweaking to do. But at the end of the day, I was very happy with the final results. When you first put on your VR headset, this is the view you're most likely to see. This is the Pico Home toolbar along the bottom, giving you quick access to various functions and features, as well as access to your settings. You use your controllers to access and move around. And in this menu it shows you the most commonly used setting, and as you can see I'm currently recording. You can adjust the brightness and also the volume level, enable Bluetooth if you want, as well as various other functions, but let's select this one, IPD. The Pico 4 has semi-automatic IPD adjustment. Select your IPD from the bottom bar here, and the lenses within the headset automatically move to that distance. Maximum is 72, and when you adjust down to 62, it gives you a warning that the lenses may pinch your nose. I didn't find that the case, as I have an IPD of 61. The minimum setting I've found is 58.5. The IPD is the distance from the center of one eye to the center of the other. Main settings can be accessed through the cog on the top right hand side. Here you can gain information on various things as well as change various settings. You can also access IPD from here. Under the tab marked Lab are a number of important settings. It's here you set the headset to 90 Hz mode, otherwise it will be default 72, and you can enable or disable see-through mode. When enabled, just double tap on the side of the headset and another camera is activated and you can see your surroundings. A very handy feature. The image is not true 3D, but it's good enough if you're looking for something. Double tap to return. Back to your VR view. There are a number of different options available in this menu, but we're not going to run through them all. What I do want to do is show you one thing under the General tab. Here there's a host of different options and settings that you can choose from. You can also set your language preference here. But if you do get the Pico 4, it's worth going down to your privacy settings and turning off some of the tracking options that are on by default. But the feature that we're looking for is under the About tab. Click on that to open it. This will give you system information, but once again the tab we're looking for here is software version. Then using your right controller and the trigger, click 7 or 8 times and a hidden menu will appear, marked Developer. And under USB connection, as the headset has one USB connector on the side, here you can select whether to use it for file transfer or for charging the headset. I've chosen file transfer and it enables charging by default. There's also hand tracking options. I haven't tried them and I don't know whether or not they've been enabled. Something I need to investigate more. If you've tried it, let me know in the comments below. We've exited the menus and back to our home screen. In order to stream data successfully to your headset, you will need to purchase a third-party application. You can find it using the search option. And the application we're looking for is called Virtual Desktop. The cost is about $20 or just over £14 and can be purchased directly in the headset. I've downloaded it and installed it. Pico have their own version. It's called the Streaming Assistant, but you won't get a good performance using that in my experience. To enable Virtual Desktop, select it using the trigger with either controller. As soon as it starts, you'll get exactly what it says on the tin. Your desktop. The software has two parts. The first part that you need to do first is run it on your desktop so the VR application can connect directly. Once it's connected and running, move your controller above the desktop and you can change the shape, size, curvature, etc. of your desktop to suit. Fairly straightforward, but we're most interested in is point your controller away from the screen downwards and a menu will appear. Gives you various options of how to watch different types of movies, a keyboard, but the right hand menu bar is the one we're interested in. This confirms that you are streamed and connected directly to your computer. You can choose a number of different environments. This one is the default. The first four allow you to have the desktop directly in front of you and float. The other ones are more fixed, such as auditorium, for example. I prefer having the desktop closer, so I'm going to go back. Under the Games tab, any Steam games that you have will be shown, and under Input, it will show your controllers and various options that you can choose or deselect for the operation of the controllers themselves. You need the controllers to navigate through most of these menus, but as mentioned before, I don't use them for flight simulation. Under the Settings tab, make sure Auto Connect is enabled. If you chose the 90 Hz, select the 90 FPS. If you chose a 72 Hz, then obviously the 72 FPS. Desktop bitrate is set automatically. Dynamic lighting only affects you in this environment, not in Sim, so I have it disabled. Microphone volume can be adjusted here. The unit has 2 mics, and normally you wouldn't have boost clock rates on. I only have it on because I'm recording. And this is the most important tab, the Streaming tab. And under VR graphics quality, you need to be on godlike mode.
Godlike. Godlike. Godlike.
Sorry, I just love the way they say that. One more time for luck. There we go. The VR bitrate is set automatically. Sharpening at 75% is default, and I find that works very well for me. I haven't adjusted the gamma, that's default. And synchronous time warp, or space warp, or motion reprojection, I've tried with always enabled and automatic, and I find automatic worked best for me. And of course here you can disable it if you want to. Under the advanced options, I've left them at default, but you can increase the video nominal range, which will give you darker blacks and brighter colors. At this point I haven't experimented with that option at this stage. Under the Videos tab, it just gives you access to your various files. Once those settings are in place as shown, we're done with Virtual Desktop and we're ready to move on. The Pico 4 uses Steam VR and not Windows Mixed Reality, so you will need to install Steam and Steam VR. Once installed, you can run Steam VR directly from the desktop. My preference is to go back to Virtual Desktop and launch Steam VR from here. Once in Steam VR, you have 2 options and can bring up 2 different types of menus. Using the right controller and pressing the Home button will bring up the Pico menu and the option to return back to the Pico Home in case you wanted to make any changes or adjustments. We don't want to do that. We want to get into Flight Sim. Press the button again to take the menu away. On the left controller, pressing the button on the extreme left, the menu button will bring up the Steam desktop. That reminds me, I must reinstall Half-Life Alyx. Thereafter you can use any controller, just press the button on the relevant controller to make it the active one. There are various menu options available along the bottom. The one we're interested in is Settings, extreme right, and it's the cog. And here's an important setting. As I'm going to be using the free OpenXR Toolkit to enhance my experience, I've set my resolution per eye to 176%. If you were going to use the Pico and not use OpenXR Toolkit, then I'd recommend set it to 150, which is where that little mark is on the slider bar, for best performance. If you're struggling, try a little lower. If you're using the Steam version of Microsoft Flight Simulator, you can optionally set via the Video tab and per application video settings. Mine's a store version, so I don't need to worry about that. But that's it, that's all we need to do on Steam. So from the bottom bar, we're going to select our desktop again. We can see the Steam VR interface showing on the desktop. I'm just going to minimize that. Don't need that showing. Don't close it, just minimize it. Again, using the trigger. That's it, it should be minimized now. There it is, very good. I mentioned virtual desktop needs to run on your PC. That's it there. I've deselected Start with Windows. All the other settings I've left at default. So I can now minimize that. Don't close it, just minimize. And now we can select Microsoft Flight Simulator and run that application via virtual desktop. Note the application itself is still running in 2D within the virtual desktop. We're not in VR Microsoft Flight Simulator yet, but we will be soon. This is actually quite an advantage. You can go back to your monitor, take your headset off if you wanted to, set up your flight in 2D, or remain within the virtual desktop, your choice. We've set up our flight, selected Fly Now. Use your shortcut key or button to enter VR. The 2-eye view is still available on Steam. Click anywhere away from the Steam VR view, and we're in full VR, and we're ready to go. Now if you're not using OpenXR, go and fly. But I'm going to quickly run through my OpenXR settings in case you're interested. As you can see on screen, it's currently locked at about 45 FPS. If you're not familiar with OpenXR Toolkit, there's videos on my channel and a ton of information on YouTube as well. I'm not going to run through it here. This video has been long enough. Bring up your OpenXR menu. I'm using version 1.2.4. As you can see, I've currently got the FPS counter on. I'm just going to turn that off. Target frame rate is off, and my upscaling sharpening setting is set to CAS, which is Contrast Adaptive Sharpening, and my sharpening is set at 70%. Fixed foveated rendering is off. Turbo mode, make sure that is off. Everything else is at default. Under the Appearance tab, I've made no changes at all. Everything again is at default, world scale at 100%. Inputs, once again, I've made no changes and it remains at default. For our system setting, we want to make some changes. We want yes to override resolution, and the display resolution I've turned all the way up as far as it would go, which for me was 3240 by 3240. Note if you do make changes here, you have to exit VR and re-enter VR. You don't have to restart your sim. Everything else here remains at default. And for my menu, no change here, everything again is default. So only a few changes, but I found that these settings gave me a level of clarity that I've not experienced before other than the Varjo Aero. No, it's not as good as the Varjo Aero, but for the cost equivalent of 2 lighthouses or base stations, never mind the cost of that headset. Once again, this is a trade-off I'm happy to live with. One final change I made was to the user config file in Microsoft Flight Simulator and set the in-sim sharpening to off and let OpenXR Toolkit do the work. How to do this is all part of the OpenXR Toolkit. I'll leave a link to their website in the notes below. So to wrap this up, my conclusions. The Pico 4 has exceeded my expectations in terms of both visual clarity, ease of use, and just plain convenience, as well as overall performance. But of course this comes with a caveat. You need a top-end graphics card to get anything near acceptable performance. It's very GPU heavy, 4090 recommended. And if you plan to use it as I do, you stream it to the headset so it's wireless, which is a fantastic thing. You do need a stable and fast broadband connection. Not sure what the minimum is. I would guess something like 100 megabits per second minimum would be required. May be wrong there. If you know, let me know in the comments below. With the settings that I've shown, you get amazing clarity. I'm currently flying around New York in my favorite helicopter, the Gotfriends Mini 500, which I've done many times in my HP Reverb before, but I've never seen it so clear and able to pick up so much detail. And as I said at the beginning of this video, this has replaced my HP Reverb as my go-to VR headset for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Well, at least for now, because of course I have one eye on the Pimax Crystal and can't wait for the initial reviews to come out. This headset has me excited as well, as it has the potential to push it well above the Aero. But of course, time will tell. For now, I'd recommend if you've got the Reverb, stick with it. If you're looking for your first headset, the Pico 4 should definitely be a consideration. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found it useful and informative. Stay well, look after yourselves. I'll see you soon, and bye for now.